Hi, my name is Priscilla Rios and I'm a fellow for the Watershed Alliance. Today I'm going to be bringing you guys on a little journey on nature collecting. And so I want to show you guys the unique things I have collected since starting my fellowship, and also the very big importance of safety when you are exploring out in nature collecting these things. One of the very few things I can recommend bringing with you is a plastic bag or a carrier bag in order to store the things that you have been collecting. And, like small little jars can work too. Another thing would be tissues to wipe away any of the dirt or like any of those kind of like germs that you can find. And gloves. Gloves is so important because it protects your fingers from actually, contaminating your like skin with the stuff from the dead. Because I do have some really cool things within my collection that you would need gloves for. If you don't have any gloves, make sure that you bring hand sanitizer with you, just so you can have that on-the-go protection. So right here you can see that I have some snake shed. I had never really seen like snakes here in Camden besides the couple times that I actually visited the Kramer Hill Nature Preserve. This is actually where I had found it at. It was within a little hidey hole where like a big tree was at, and it was near the Delaware River. And that was a really perfect place for snakes to hide in because, like in order for reptiles to really like shed their skin, they have to like rub up against like rocks or anything that can help them like just like, like shred it out. And although I am touching it without any gloves, you also have to be really careful when picking up snakeskin because they usually would shed like bacteria that can be harmful, or like things like salmonella. When you find these snake skins, absolutely make sure that you check around first to see if there's any if the snake has stayed within that area or if they had departed. And that's a really big thing because when you find shed like this, maybe you see how like it's not fully attached, like there is no head part. Sometimes the snake, it could just be like this and all you see is just this part, but the snake can still be like part of it. So you just want to make sure and be very careful and cautious when approaching these snake sheds and when you want to collect them. Besides the snake shed, I also found with Adriana at Petty's Island this amazing male deer antler. And it's such a really cool find because like it's just so like interesting to have this. I've never would have ever thought I would ever have a deer antler like this. It's just part of the deer that's just like usually you would find like, see, the skull doesn't have like the antlers with it. But this is just like cut away, just removed. It's so interesting. And it was during the, I want to say like when it started to become fall. And so like when I ended up finding this female deer skull, it's like, I found this at the preserve. So this was during the winter time. And the funny thing about finding bones during the differences of like summer winter is that during summertime there tends to be a lot of vegetation, and so it's a little harder to find bones, especially if you're not going off trail, because that's where most of the action happens, is always off trail. You never know what happens over there until like winter time and you find like remains and stuff like that. So that's what happened with this one. This one was actually like really cleaned off, and it's so surprising to have found something like this. I believe with it was just like some of the spine pieces, and the difference of usually when you find like remains, there tends to be still like sometimes fresh like flesh on it, or sometimes even like really dirty debris. The way I was cleaning it is how like I grabbed a bucket of hot water with soap and a toothbrush, just like a spare one. So I ended up also getting a hot bucket of peroxide too and dipping it in there and just scrubbing away more. When you are cleaning skulls, you want to be very careful because usually there are like plates in there that are really fragile. And then the same method was used for this deer antler. And it's just so cool. Usually it's like, I always try to point out the differences of like, you know, going during the winter time or the summertime. And it's usually just the vegetation that's just very different. Okay, this one I'm excited about, but not so excited about because I personally am actually really scared of wasps. So it's all in this container. I'm not gonna take it out just for the purpose of this, but just like the deer, the cicada killer was actually on my porch and it was dead already. The importance of this is that even though it's an insect and it is small, you really do not want to go out here and be killing the animals and the insects. Those are a part of nature, they are doing their job, they also have parts to do in the ecosystem, so please be mindful. Even though you see something cool that you might want to collect, killing is just not the way of gathering it. You can just either take photos of it from like a distance or just admiring it, and that's just it. But in this container, I have a wasp's nest and a cicada killer. Whew, even just having that in my hands is so crazy. I can't. So with the wasp nest, I ended up finding that in the Petty's Island. It was really cool because usually, like during the winter time, you would find like wasp nests, like when the trees like lose all of their like leaves and stuff. They usually leave like their wasp nest there. Be very careful because if you do find a wasp nest and it's on the floor, because that's how I found this one, it was already on the floor, you always want to be very cautious when picking them up, because if you do, there still could be like eggs or anything like that within the wasp nest. And you just want to be very careful, although it might be the dead of winter or something, that a wasp might not even still be like living in there. Usually by like summertime, if you ever notice like on concrete floors, because it's so hot, I think bees tend to overheat sometimes, and they're usually on the floor. And that's how I found this. This isn't the first time I ever seen a cicada killer on the floor. I've seen like honeybees and just bees. It's very common a little bit, but with those two, it can also be a little tricky. The way I knew this one was dead was that it had ants like in and out of it, so that's how I know it was already pre-dead before like coming into my collection. Wasps, or like bees, in the wintertime, bees actually tend to freeze up, and people like bringing them in and like feeding them like honey, and they actually are still alive. You really want to be careful with that, because if you tend to put a bee in this jar and it's still like, I don't know, like a day later or something, it's like alive and it's flying around, it's like, I don't know, I would personally freak out and be like, yo, there's a bee in my jar, like, I just, no. So you just want to be careful with that too. As for this, it kind of tells me a little story of like the cicada killer was just out here like going through battles with other bees, and just it might have lost. I have no idea. Cicada killers are pretty big, like they're really huge. But something got to it, and it's either that or the heat got to it or something, but these dudes are warriors. Like, they will not back down. Just like every other insect, they will fight to the end of their lives. But yeah, this is the third amazing cool thing of my collection.